Hello, folks. People have been asking me to do a video on Canal Street Tavern and some of the last days, and also being an executive officer there at Canal Street Tavern, and share some of my experiences, working at Canal Street Tavern and throwing shows there, and how I got involved with Canal Street and the Dayton Does Dayton Festival, which also is producing one of the producers for a movie coming out called Shelter Flunky. So I thought that this would be a great opportunity to talk a little bit about Canal Street Tavern, and I'm sure it will reminiscent with a lot of people their experiences at Canal Street Tavern. Rather than talk about um, the history of Canal Street Tavern and all that kind of stuff. I want to talk a little bit about towards the later days of Canal Street Tavern, my experiences with being his, especially his box office manager towards the end when it was under new management, and also kind of the spirit and the soul of Mick Montgomery, the former owner and operator of Canal Street Tavern. Um, and what it was like working for him, what it was like working there in general, I'm glad to do this video, and I'm glad you're watching. I hope you find it interesting, and please share it and like and whatnot. So anyway, a little brief history about myself. Um, I started out in music at a very, very young age. I was in choir in middle school, um, all that kind of stuff. And in the early 90s, my uncle was a sponsor for people in AA and NA, and he was very involved in that recovery program. And he started to do the NA dances, and he got paid to, do the dances. And at a young age, back in the Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer, CNC Music Factory days, I got to DJ to people at a very young age, and that and a lot of the scholastic activities I was involved with. And I also started to work at the Museum of Natural History in '91. I stayed there for many years, working in their planetarium and astronomy department, and the observatory and whatnot. And so I got involved with music at a young age, and then I started DJing professionally um, in nightclubs around age 18 in the Gothic industrial music scene, as well as the 80s music scene, which was real big in the late 2000s. Um, and I didn't start throwing actual music concerts by myself outside of being an employee and a door person at like the Oregon Express. I didn't really start throwing full blown concerts until about 2006. But I had, like I said, many years experience, being an organizer and producer at the museum and um, whatnot, and helping to run the laser light shows on the weekends. Um, really wasn't into the bar scene because I already worked the door at the Oregon Express and things like that, and was more interested in the dance music culture and getting people to dance and things like that. So around 2009, when I really started to throw full blown shows, I started to do these tribute shows where original bands would do their original material, and then they would do covers of other bands and things like that I liked. And one of the main reasons why I started throwing shows was because I wanted to see tribute shows to bands I like The Cure and the Smiths and the Clash and New Order and things like that. So throwing shows gave me something to do, along with working the door and DJing. So um, I remember the first time I threw a show. Someone was working for me at the time, Jay Madewell. He said, I want to be your stage manager. I want to be involved with these first two shows. The first tribute was at the Dayton Dirt Collective, as well as the follow-up to tribute to The Cure. And he said, I want to be the stage manager because these bands can be very vicious. And boy, was he right. Local bands can be vicious, when you're working with them, especially for the first time. So he was my stage manager for many years at the Oregon Express and Canal Street Tavern. So I threw a couple of successful shows at the Dayton Dirt Collective, and then they got too big. So I wanted to move into a bigger venue. And a guy named Christopher Cook, who ended up marrying Mick Montgomery's daughter, Hannah, introduced me to Mick and in his office. Mick asked me to throw some shows there because he caught wind that my shows were really getting big. So I threw a show at Canal Street Tavern for the first time, and it was very, very successful. Let me tell you about Mick Montgomery. The first day I ever worked the door, I worked the door at Canal Street Tavern. And even working the door at Canal Street Tavern was an honor. It really was. He was in a wheelchair, and because he was suffering from a bad heart condition and whatnot, that eventually, unfortunately, passed away from. We'll miss him to death. He's one of the best human beings I've ever met in my life, and other people will say the same things and be right on board with me on that statement. Two of his best friends, I was working the door and we're sitting by the register with him, and we were watching a really good band perform that he booked himself, and which Mick did most of the booking himself. I booked my own shows there and worked the door and whatnot, and did security there and things like that, like I did at the Oregon Express. I threw a lot of successful shows at the OE, worked the door there as well. I was sitting next to him, and two of his very close friends came into the show, and they had money, but they were just kind of walking around the neighborhood of Canal Street and downtown Dayton, just trying to get some drinks and, do some women looking and whatnot, like a lot of people do in Dayton, a lot of single people and whatnot. They asked to get in for free, and they said, well, we'll tip your bartender and buy, a bunch of drinks and, try to make the bar happy. But Mick, he pointed at the bar, looked at the bar, and had them look, or at the stage, and he had them look at the stage. And he said, if I let you in for free, I'm taking money right out of the band's pocket. And that floored me. I've never had, in my career of working in clubs and bars, dance clubs and nightclubs and bars and things like that, did a bar owner actually say, no, you have to pay to get in so I can pay the bands. And that, like I said, that floored me. And they ended up not getting in that night because they didn't want to pay the door fee. They wanted to go straight to the bar and drink. And that's very unusual. Mick was all about paying the bands. He took 10% from the door money and then $50 for the sound, and the band got the rest of the money. And Canal Street Tavern, like I said, I'm not going to talk a lot about the history of Canal Street Tavern, when it opened and things like that. There's plenty of information out there. This is going to be kind of a centered look at the, what my experience is and whatnot. Canal Street Tavern was a true listening room. It was a true gem in Dayton. I know that a lot of people say, oh, there'll never be a place like this again, or there'll never be a band, or there'll never be music like this again. But it was very, very unique. Canal Street Tavern, I think, officially was one of the first bars, if not the first music venue. And it wasn't a bar, it was a music venue. It was only open for shows. It was only open for shows and events that were privately booked through Mick, or through me or another promoter. There weren't many promoters that threw shows at Canal Street Tavern. It was very exclusive to Mick for the most part. But it was a real listening room. It was a real listening room. People went to Canal Street Tavern not for sports games to watch on the big screen, or Buffalo Wings, or to have something to eat. It was only open just for shows. If you were going to Canal Street Tavern, you were going to see the acts there that night. You were there for the acts. And a lot of times people were really quiet, especially during the acoustic performances. A lot of times people are eating and having conversations. At Canal Street Tavern, people pretty much 100% were there to pay attention to the bands and whatnot, and so much history. So Canal Street Tavern, pretty much, I believe, skeptically, my hypothesis is it was the first music venue in Dayton to open up for original bands. Around the time that Canal Street Tavern opened up in the early 80s, you had to be a cover band or a band that was there to entertain guests while they were going to be there anyway, regardless of who was performing on stage or whatnot. But it was a real music venue for listening. Very, very about being there to support the bands and the acts that were there, rather than just being there to look for women or look for guys or whatnot. It was really, truly, genuinely a gem when it comes to that. A lot of people in the Oregon District, when they go to places like Blind Bob's or Trolley Stop, and these are great places in the Oregon Express, they're usually there to walk around and get drinks and, look for women, and you're not really there for the most part for who's performing on stage, although there are people that go to these places specifically for the bands. But Canal Street Tavern was that special place that you would go specifically to see a certain show or a certain act. So I commend Mick for that. And I think Canal Street Tavern closed prematurely. I think Mick worked out a deal with the new owner, Bill Daniels, who owned Pizza Factory. And a lot of people don't realize that Pizza Factory actually, I believe, got its first start at Canal Street Tavern. They had a small kitchen in the back room at Canal Street Tavern. So I believe that's where Bill Daniels got his start from for his business, Pizza Factory. So anyway, there was a deal worked out because Mick was trying to sell the building. There was a deal worked out where Bill Daniels would own the bar, and Mick would book the shows and have his own door and sound guy, and then the bar would sell the drinks, make 100% profit off of the drinks, and of course Mick would take 10% from the door and $50 for sound, and give the bands the rest of the money. So Mick already knew there wasn't a whole lot of money involved in this deal. But anyway, but Mick didn't know that the person that was going to manage it was going to run the place so poorly, and the new owner, the new manager, Shane Sullivan, was trying to turn it into more of like a hipster bar with all this new draft beer, and I commend people for that. I like draft beer too. Nothing against draft beer, but anyway, things just weren't working out between the new owner, the new manager, and Mick. There was just a lot of kind of rivalry between how the place should be ran and whatnot. They would do shady things, like they would change it to 21 and up instead of 18 and up when there'd be a ton of people waiting in line to buy tickets, and they didn't know it was 21 and up, and they get switching back and forth. A lot of crazy things were happening. It was just mismanaged, and the new manager was kind of an alcoholic and was falling asleep at the tables and things like that. And it was a really hard person to work for, and it's not a bad guy. But so basically, Mick got aggravated towards the end, and his health was really bad, and he decided to take the sign down and walk the other direction and walk away from the situation. And then it turned into Canal Public House, and of course they ran the new business into the ground because they didn't pay taxes and they weren't buying alcohol officially like they were supposed to and things like that. So they got in a lot of trouble, and eventually it turned into the Canal Street Deli, which it is now. And of course they stole the name. Canal Street was kind of a special name for Mick, and he agreed with me as well as other people that both places basically stole the name Canal Street. And but I do like Canal Street Deli. They do have good food down there, and it seems like they're being very successful, so I wish them the best. When you threw shows at Canal Street Tavern, you had to be a special promoter. You had to be a special band. You had to fill that place up to make it worth your while. Because if you were a band and you didn't bring people there, or you didn't have a following because of your music or your fans, and you weren't going to make any money at this place. So if you were able to fill up Canal Street Tavern or bring a good crowd, you were somebody special as a musician or in a band or as a promoter. And a lot of people did all right at Canal Street Tavern as far as the crowd, and a lot of people didn't do very well as Canal Street. And to get a weekend night at Canal Street Tavern was really hard. It was almost impossible. You had to be a really good crowd-drawing band or musician or promoter to get a weekend night. And luckily, I proved myself to Mick early on, right off the bat, when I first started throwing shows there. I could bring 200 people out to Canal Street Tavern. I've broken records at places like South Park Tavern, places like that. And I know what it takes to get people out to a show, and a lot of people don't. And even bands have a hard time, figuring out for their whole career how to get people out to a show and get them to, come out and park and walk around downtown and stuff like that. But so I commend you if you're watching this video and you were able to fill Canal Street Tavern up. Props to you. So it didn't work out very well. And Canal Street Tavern is really not a sports screeny draft beer niche type of club, so I think that they kind of took it in the wrong directions. But props for them, for Shane, for trying to turn it mold it into something that they wanted. So I always give people credit for that, but it didn't work out. I've done some big shows at Canal Street Tavern. Even Mick told me, he was like, I'll get over 250 people out to one of these gigs, and he was like, nobody does that anymore. How do you do it? And I shared my tricks and trades with Mick, and he always commended me for it, and I appreciate that. Mick Montgomery when he passed away, it was one of the saddest moments of my life. I feel his spirit and his soul in my heart every day. Every time I think about throwing a show or event, or shooting a movie, or doing anything in the community, his heart is right here with mine. His spirit and soul is right here with mine. And I wish he didn't pass away so soon. I wish I was able to work at Canal Street Tavern for a few more years, and I wish he stayed on board to continue to do shows and put up with some of the crap, but he couldn't take it. And when Mick decided to take the sign down, and that's when I decided to quit too. It was the first job I ever quit that I loved, and Shane even said he wanted to keep me on after Mick left, but I told Shane personally, working the door one night, that I wanted him to start out fresh, and since Mick was leaving, I'm going to leave too, and that's when they completely revamped the place without any of the prior Canal Street Tavern staff besides Timmy, who is a great sound guy. Timmy, hello, if you're watching, you're a great sound guy. I haven't seen and talked to you in a while. I hope you're doing all right and you're able to continue doing what you love. But Mick was really upset with the way that they were running the place. I remember Shane one time he was in the back of me and he was holding up 2 beers and he was like, "Tell Mick I'm drinking." It's not the way you run a bar. You can't be an alcoholic and run a bar. And again, Shane's a good guy. Hello, Shane. He's on my friends list on Facebook. And again, I commend Shane and so did Mick. Mick was all about people doing what they wanted, what they love, and turning things into what they want. So it didn't work out. There's a lot of fighting and things like that, and just the way they ran the place, and things like that. And actually, Mick, for my birthday, gave me the first stamper they used at Canal Street Tavern, and the last stamper. I got to stamp the last person's hand when it was officially Canal Street Tavern, and take that stamper home with me as a present on my birthday. So it's one of the best things that was ever given to me. One of the most precious items ever in my life that was ever given to me was the stamper at Canal Street Tavern. And I would go get it right now, but I'm shooting this video and I don't want to leave the video shot right now. Throwing shows at Canal Street Tavern was, I know this sounds cheesy and cliche, but it was a heavenly experience. It was heaven throwing shows there, and it was heaven working there. Just the spirit that Mick provided for that place. And everyone who's ever worked there, no matter what they did, they ran sound, they did the door, they worked behind the bar. It was an honor. Everyone is backing me when I say this. It was an honor and a treasure to work at Canal Street Tavern. Even when it was Canal Public House, it was an honor working in that building. And in the days when it was in this transformation days, it was such an honor. And I'll never forget it. And I don't think there will ever be such a heavenly place to work at than Canal Street Tavern. It kind of makes me want to tear up right now. It's so hard to describe. There will never be a bar or a music venue in Dayton like Canal Street Tavern that was so loved and so cherished. And I hope that Dayton gets a 250-seater like that again, a listening room, where people really come to listen to the music and to pay attention to the bands. We really don't have that in Dayton. We have the larger venues like the Rose and Nutter Center and Phrase and for bigger bands, but Canal Street Tavern was a place for important bands that were coming through town. Even big bands have played Canal Street Tavern. It was a real gem, and it was a place for bands that had successful, famous artists that went on to do solo careers that came through and performed there by themselves and drew big crowds. And it was a music venue for everybody of all ages and ethnicities. And there's so many formats and genres of music that performed at Canal Street. Like a lot of places in the Oregon District, they have kind of a specific niche and genre of music that they present to their taste. But Canal Street Tavern in Montgomery was about all types of music: country, rap, rock, hard rock, folk, acoustic especially. And that bands play also, a lot of people don't realize that Dayton Band Playoffs is one of the longest running Battle of the Bands in the history of this country. It really was. And there's a lot of history of Canal Street Tavern too. When it first, I know I wasn't going to talk about the history. When it first opened up, it was a pool hall table bar for the factories next door, and Mick had to take the pool tables out, and he pissed off a lot of people, a lot of the workers that were coming in after work to have a drink and play pool, because he was turning into a music venue, and they fought him for that. So Mick got to see a little bit of controversy in Dayton in the area with that, the venue of him trying to turn it into a real music establishment rather than just a pool hall bar like it was in the beginning. And I think it was a spark plug assembly line factory at one point too, like the first spark plug assembly line in Dayton. I'm not sure. Correct me, fact check me on that if I'm right or wrong on that. So it might be wrong. But it really was a place where people gathered specifically just for the music. And like I said, without repeating myself, which I am, there aren't many bars, any 250, 200, 100 seaters like that anymore. Mick was very stern about making sure that the bands got paid. He had them sign off for their money. He talked to them in their office while he was paying them, which was really weird because I would talk when I was paying the bands at the end of the night in the office. The new manager would come in and he thought something was wrong because I was having cool conversations with the bands and hearing their history of playing there in the past. And Shane thought it was something wrong, like I was arguing with them or something. No, we were just talking. So he thought we were kind of in a disagreement or something. So that's how kind of rare Canal Street Tavern was. And he told them, on the phone too, that I want to talk to you on the phone. I don't want to, or in person. I don't want to talk to you through email. If you got an email from Mick, it said something like, one phone call can save dozens of emails. I'll never forget that too, and that rubbed off on me because when I book bands and events and things, I have to talk to people on the phone just like Mick did, and in person I have to get a feel for them. I don't just book them through the email. And Mick was a rare gem when it came to that. He was all about being up close and personal with the people that were performing in his venue and making sure that they were in the know and they were prepared and were able to enjoy their experience and get the best out of Canal Street Tavern when they performed there. And there were some people over the years that were pretty ticked off at Canal Street Tavern because they didn't have a good turnout or whatnot, or they didn't promote themselves well, or the newspaper ad that Mick paid for didn't bring people in and things like that. So they were a little ticked off and feel like they got a little ripped off from the bands. But Mick never ripped off the bands, and he was always upfront and straightforward about how they were going to get paid, when they were going to get paid, and how they could get paid well by getting people out. And he was all hands in to making sure that the bands were in the know. And he spent a good length of time talking to them and going over things with them. And that is something very rare. I tell you what, Mick is one of the most amazing people you could have ever met if you were able to meet him. And everyone is behind me on that. You'll never have the soul and the spirit in Dayton for a music venue like that. And that's putting it lightly. It's hard to describe in words how well and how fortunate Dayton was with Canal Street Tavern. And we are at a loss right now because we don't have a 200 seat venue in listening room like Dayton. And again, I hope that we have something like that again, with the spirit and the soul that Mick does. And this video is dedicated to him, of course. And Mick started Dayton Does Dayton. In the beginning, I actually didn't believe that Mick came up with the idea for Dayton Does Dayton. I thought it was Rich Reuter because Rich and I were riding to one of our gigs or promoting something, I can't remember, and Rich Reuter, who was from former bands Red Earth and Nine False Sons, which were really good bands in Dayton, and I appreciate you, Rich, and I do believe that you were the first person to help with the idea of Dayton Does Dayton. But then we found out later on that Mick actually had a show before we talked about Dayton Does Dayton, called Dayton Does Dayton, and it was mainly acoustic show. So I turned it into a full-fledged music festival with the help of Rich Reuter and Jay Madewell. So props to you for helping me get that show off the ground. So we ended up turning it into a 2-day full-fledged music festival with singer-songwriters and full bands on 2 nights, and turned out to be a big success. And every year we've thrown it, it's been a big success. So Mick, we miss you. And I'm an atheist, and I don't believe that we live after we die. And I would like that to happen. I would love to live forever, and I would love to meet Mick in heaven, or on some type of spiritual plane. And I hope that happens, but I doubt it. And you'll always be in my heart, Nick. And you did so much for Dayton, and so did Canal Street and its employees, and we all miss you. And I'm sorry that you're not around anymore, but what can you do? But one thing that Mick was very about was making sure that everybody got a chance, making sure that everybody got a chance, no matter what type of genre of a musician you are or a band. He wanted to give you a chance. He wouldn't give you a weekend date if you didn't prove yourself, but if you prove yourself, he would give you a weekend date. But he did, except for me and a couple other promoters, he would give weekday dates, especially the local bands, to have them prove themselves to move up to weekend. But he kept weekends available for touring bands and national bands that were coming through. So for the weekend entertainment, and so many great bands came through Canal Street Tavern from out of town. Famous bands, famous musicians from very, very famous bands. You'd be, if you just Google all the acts that came through Canal Street Tavern. It's astronomically bizarre, actually, that how many great acts that Mick booked at Canal Street, record-breaking bands and solo artists from that he booked. And I'm just glad that I was able to pack the place so hard and so heavily on the weekends. That's such a cherishable thing to think about, because not many. I'm not trying to sound narcissistic or egotistical, but Canal Street Tavern was a hard place to pack because there really wasn't people walking back and forth, just hanging out around that area. So if you packed that place, you had something was going on with you. You had something going on. And even Mick would call me through the years and ask me, is this, is anything going on? And I'll say, no, nothing's really going on if there was only like 60 people there. But I would say, something was going on if there was like 200 people there. So Mick and I were excited about packing that place. We had a hard time when we didn't pack the place, which was kind of very rarely, to be honest with you. We kind of took it personally because that was our love and joy, was getting that place packed and making sure the bands made money, and we made some money as well. The other thing too is Mick had no problem with making money off of entertainment, and neither do I. I don't feel bad if I make money off of throwing a show. You know what I mean? I don't feel bad. A lot of times people will down a promoter or producer for making money off an event alongside with the bands, but Mick was always like, you need your cut too. And I gave Mick a cut. Even when Mick was just a co-producer, I made sure that he got a cut along with the bands. And Mick always loved that. And I'm glad that I was able to give him a little bit of money outside of Canal Street Tavern when we were throwing shows at Jilly's. I remember one night Mick and I were sitting at the table, and the owner's brother, Jerry Giuliotti's brother, came running towards us because he was upset because we had the place so packed. He was like, you're trying to run this place like Canal Street Tavern. We can't have this place this full, this early. Da, 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 da. So they were actually kind of not able to service our shows earlier in the night. When we first started, we had the place so packed. But that's an honor when one of the owner members' family members comes running at you complaining that you packed the place too hard. But eventually Julie's got used to the crowd that we brought there with the Dayton Does Dayton Festival especially, and they got used to 250, 300 people there, 7 o'clock in the evening. But a lot of clubs, they're not used to that, even when it's a national show, But Mick and I, we packed Jilly's right before, the couple of years before Mick passed away. We packed the hell out of Jilly's, and we were very proud of that, I'll never forget his brother coming running out, just complaining. We packed the place, and Mick said that was completely unreal. He said he's never heard that either, So I'll never see Mick come running. I can never see Mick coming to run after me, where we're sitting down, organizing some of the paperwork of the show, and telling me that I packed his club too heavily that night. He would probably pat me on the back a million times. So, but Mick was on it. But anyway, I'm gonna leave this video. I'm at the half-hour mark, and Canal Street Tavern is very special, and I'm not trying to badmouth anybody in this, and I just told the truth about what happened, and just didn't work out, and it should have stayed open for a few more years. I don't think Mick should have sold the building. I think Mick was tired of selling alcohol more than the shows, and to keep a bar or club open, you got to sell something. You got to sell liquor and things like that. So he was getting tired of selling the liquor. So, and unfortunately, when you don't sell the liquor, there's not much money in just ticket sales, and Mick knew that, so going in, but Mick, it really didn't bother him. He made a little money when the new owners were running it, but he was more about the entertainment and being able to throw shows there and stuff like that. But they weren't running the place the way he wanted and the way I wanted, and it ended sour that way. But hey, things happen. But hopefully, like I keep saying, we'll have another music venue like Dayton, and maybe we might have a club owner or a bar owner that has the spirit and the soul that Mick does. I don't think that they will, but hopefully Dayton will get that again. And cheers to Canal Street Tavern and all those great memories and I've thrown dozens and dozens and dozens of shows there, countless shows that did well, and I'm very lucky that I was able to have that opportunity, and so are others. And this is me signing off. Have a good one. Free parking.